Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's second Friday Food, Wine, and Travel Show with the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. That's a mouthful. We say IFWA, it's far easier. So every second Friday we get to chat with travel writers and photographers about their craft, their destinations they've been to. It's just always so cool. Second Friday and every second Tuesday we get to talk with destinations themselves, visitor bureaus and organizations about their area. So we love the second weeks. A very cool time here on Big Blend Radio with IFWA, and I encourage you to learn about IFWA. If you don't know about them, go to ifwtwa.org. A really cool website connecting, or organization and website that connects travel writers, photographers, authors with destinations. And for those of us who love travel, we get to follow the stories on social media, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and really find out about all these amazing destinations. So today we're airing live from Silver Spring, Maryland. And this is pretty cool. We haven't done a live IFWA show for a while, actually. We've been doing a lot of Zoom recordings, and so it's nice and refreshing to do something live from Silver Spring, Maryland. And what's so funny is our guest today is just around the corner from us in Maryland.
I know.
So we're going to be chatting with freelance travel writer and photographer Julie-Dee-Suman, and her story today, and we love national parks, right? Well, it's about Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens in Washington, D.C. So it's not far from, I think it's like 12 miles from us. So, Nancy, we may have to hit this because if you read her story, go to nationalparktraveling.com, read her story, just type in Kenilworth, which is Kenil, not kennel like for your dog. So we always have dogs on the show. I'm not calling people dogs, but we pet sit as we travel, so you may hear a dog bark. But it's Kenil, Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. But if you type that on nationalparktraveling.com, you'll see her story and amazing photos. And follow Julie. Go to See by Julie D. So it's SEEJULIE. Oh, so See by Julie D. It's DEE. So welcome, Julie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Lisa and Nancy. I'm excited to speak with you tonight and talk about Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens.
Hey, listen, I think, Nancy, you'll second this, right? Don't you think this is like lotus garden, like lotus flower weather here in Maryland, Nancy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just all kind of gelled together today.
Yeah. It's kind of tropical. This is different. We've never, we've been in Maryland. We were in Tanzania outside Gettysburg. But this is a little different. And there's woods and trees and all kinds of cool birds and where we are, it's just beautiful. Beautiful gardens. Yeah. But it kind of does feel tropical.
Well, I think the Chesapeake Bay sort of helps modulate some of the temperatures around here, and we do have some lovely green spaces if you know where to find them in the Washington, D.C. area.
We were actually looking on the map today and looking at some of them going, okay, because we always, in between our pet sitting life and production time, which is our pet sitting time, we go to all the parks. And by the time people see us at our next destination, we look like we've been in the aquatic garden, in the pond. In fact, I have to tell you, a friend of ours who's been on the show for many years, I'm going to send him this podcast. He's going to love this. He was rescued by a helicopter out of Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. That's where I first heard about it. He was on the show. Alan Spears for the National Parks Conservation Association. He's the one who got us all enthused about Gettysburg, too. But, he's apparently one of the few people rescued by a helicopter out of there. I don't know.
Well, I hope he was okay.
Yes, he's doing volunteer work. Alan Spears is awesome. He does a lot of, with NPCA, the National Parks Conservation Association, who kind of inspired us to go on this tour of documenting parks and public lands. He really goes into the government affairs and so helps get parks set up, and also parks for women, by the way, and there's women's history in this park, which is cool, which we want to talk about, but women's, parks also that Black history and things like that. So he's into the cultural affairs of parks because of the National Park Service. We have over 400 parks, and I think it's like 2/3 or 3/4 of them are actually historic sites. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, and Kenilworth seems to have a lot of history on top of all these beautiful flowers.
Yeah, it has a really interesting backstory. I mean, it starts back as late as the 1880s when a gentleman named Walter Shaw moved from Maine. He bought 30 acres near the Anacostia River in D.C., which part of that land was sort of wetlands, and it was kind of considered not really good for anything. But he was a lover of nature and plants, and he brought with him 12 lilies, white lilies from Maine, and planted them in ponds near his property, and that was the beginnings of the gardens. And then his daughter took a real interest in this and helped her dad turn the Kenilworth into actually a business of selling lotus flowers and water lilies. So it really actually started off as a family property and business and then turned into a land of preservation.
Wow. So they really cultivated, but these were lilies from lotus flowers, right, from Asia, right? Like
yeah, so correct. So what the daughter Helen Shaw, she became known actually as like a world diplomat for aquatic gardening, and so she had a passion for expanding the offerings of the plants in the garden. She would travel around the world and bring back lotus flowers and seeds, and she even helped to like propagate them and had made her own hybrid flowers that thrived there. So she was really a well-known horticulturalist and helped bring in plants from all over the world that you can see different species at Kenilworth.
Nice. See, this is really cool history, and at the same time, so we have native ones there too.
Yeah, so that's something I never knew until I went there, that there is the yellow water lilies is an American lotus, and it's actually something that is, from here. So they have a few ponds with those lotus flowers in them. But, going back to Helen, I think, talking about women from the top of the show, she, I think, was a trailblazer in the fact that, she took over the business in 1921 from her father when he passed away. But she had been managing it before that. And, she made it a thriving business. She became world known for promoting aquatic gardens. She was the first woman in D.C. to actually get a driver's license to drive a truck.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
So, she was an importer, she was a grower, and this was all like in the early, 1900s. And
that's
she was a real trailblazer then.
Yeah, I mean, most plants are actually named after men, or the men are naming it, the plants after what they want, Yeah. So it's kind of, but we are finding that a lot of parks, women, they're like, you got to look at Marjorie Stone Douglas in Everglades National Park, really fought for that park. Carolyn Dorman, Saatchi National Forest, which is the only national forest in Louisiana, is because of her. And apparently she was outspoken, and she was a teacher and was outspoken about saving trees and got kicked out of the education system.
Oh,
and now we have this forest because of her. So you look at Helen Shaw, here she is as an entrepreneur. Who would have thought an entrepreneur in the plant business? You know what I mean? In the horticultural world.
Yeah. And it was a thriving business. And then in the late 20s, 30s, the government wanted to dredge the Anacostia River because it had gotten clogged and bogged down over the years, and they wanted to annex her property. And she lobbied Congress with her brother and fought to have that land protected. It was about an 8-year battle, and she was successful, and that's how the Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens came to life, her efforts to preserve the land.
Nice.
That's really cool. And because, when I've always heard about it from Alan being on the show, and, he's like, when you go to D.C., you need to go there. It's one of these hidden gems. Because you think about D.C., and we're a little nervous. Take us to D.C. We're a little nervous to go and, what are we going to do? So, I have to say, probably so many of our friends who have been part of Big Blend Radio for gazillions of years are all around here, and they're all going to yell at us because we're here, and we're like, working instead of out there seeing everyone and doing stuff. But they were all like, we'll take you, but the first thing people think is the National Mall. You know, even in your story you say everyone thinks cherry blossoms immediately, right? But Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens, you don't really hear about that as much as you think of the mall. Is it kind of connected? Is it close to it for travelers?
Well, it's close to D.C., but it's actually there's an interstate called 295 that runs, into D.C., and the gardens are just one exit. You take an exit off of 295. You take a few turns. It's actually in the back of the neighborhood. You look like you're going through a neighborhood, and there's a parking lot, free parking, so it's actually very easy to get to. There are walking paths that connect it to D.C., but it's on the other side of the Anacostia River than the mall and things like that. So you would probably need to drive, really, if you wanted to go down to the mall. But you're really close by. Like, it's common nearby to go to, like, the Navy Yard, which is an up-and-coming neighborhood, go down to Old Alexandria. They're all very close, driving distance to Kenilworth.
Wow, and then I was reading, like, Baltimore, which is really kind of it's all connected, right? It has, like, a whole heritage area, too. Like, that's like
there's a lot, particularly on the Eastern Shore, but there is spots around the Baltimore area with history related to the Underground Railroad and Frederick Douglass and, Civil War history. And, there's a lot to see here from a historic standpoint as well as, at the national park standpoint.
I love this because it ties history and nature together, and I think that's one of the beauties of our national park system. And one thing you talked about in your article, and everyone, you got to go see our beautiful photos, and there's picnic grounds. Like, you can have a picnic looking at these flowers, right?
Right. Right. It's free. They encourage you to come and enjoy the park and use it. It's really a community resource. The last time I was there was a community poetry group that was meeting, and, you could kind of listen to that. And, there were families there with their children having a picnic. There's these, lovely red Adirondack chairs. They're sort of placed around some of the ponds. You can just, hang out and enjoy being in nature.
Now, okay, so now I have to say it was a tidal marsh. Now, there is a tidal marsh there, though, right? Like
there are these ponds are not necessarily affected by the tides, but there is a marsh on the back of the property, Kenilworth Marsh, which is linked to the Anacostia River. So it can, it does have some, changes in terms of tidal, but there have been sometimes, I was told when I was down there the last time talking to some of the volunteers, that when there's a lot of rain, sometimes the Anacostia will flood and overflow into the Kenilworth, and there are some fish in the ponds that have come from the Anacostia. So occasionally they get some unwanted visitors in the Lotus and ponds.
I asked that because I had to go back on Alan Spear's bio on npca.org, everyone. Then I had to make sure I was right about it, because I know he always talked about Kenilworth, and I'm like, what do you mean an aquatic garden in the middle of D.C.? I always felt that, and then your article, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what they're talking about, and it says Alan is the only staff person to ever be rescued from a tidal marsh by a park police helicopter. So there you go. So I just had to get it correct, because I don't want him to get mad at me, because he is one of the most special people on the planet. So I'm just saying, for what he's done for parks like Stonewall and just so many, Harriet Tubman, and this is kind of interesting that I'm seeing that Maryland, that the park system, it's like Harriet Tubman National Monument is taken over part of. There's a Blackwater Wildlife Refuge that we've been to in Maryland.
Yes, it's out on the Eastern Shore, Blackwater Wildlife. It's also fabulous. If you are a bird lover, it is any time of the year. It's a great time to go there. The bald eagles will nest there in the wintertime, and you'll see them too in the summertime. But Blackwater is fabulous. But you also see birds at Kenilworth if you're into that. So towards the back of the property, we were talking about the marsh. There's a boardwalk that, goes out into the mud flats and in towards the marsh and has viewing stations where you can sit and watch, there's great blue herons and white egrets. We saw, the last time I was there, we saw a bald eagle flying over and ospreys. So, there's also, surprisingly a large number of wildlife there. There's turtles and other things like that. And, you'll see a lot of people, a lot of professional photographers or amateur or probably hobbyists as well with, these big lenses waiting to take pictures of the birds. So it's another, I think, unknown feature of the gardens is that there is a large species of waterfowl and birds that are actually on the property as well.
That's I was reading your article about that, and you were naming off some. It's really the species. The number of species are pretty. It's what in the 200s, I think. 240 species. Yes. Yeah. And that's. I mean, and then you've got all these lilies around, and that's really in the summertime, right? That the lilies are there, but it changes every season.
Right. There's things to do there every year. The lilies and lotus are really peaking in July, so, we were talking about this being lotus weather. The peak is pretty much on us now, and there is a lotus and water lily festival that happens throughout the month of July in the park. But the lilies and lotus start to bloom probably in May, and will go into August. But in the springtime, there's magnolias and cherry blossoms. The fall, you have, the fall colors. And then in the winter, there's also migratory birds that come. So it is, changing wildlife throughout the year. So there's always, it seems like there's always something to see and do there.
That's awesome. I want to go, Nancy. We're gonna have to do something. I know. We're gonna have.
You really ought to.
We're gonna have to do this. I'm telling you. This is.
If you do go though now, it's best to go in the morning because both the water lilies and the lotus are more open in the morning. As the afternoon heat comes on, they will close their blooms. It's still beautiful, but to see them in their, their full, display, it's better to go in the morning.
And it's cooler because you guys are a little, you're a little swampy here. I didn't expect swampiness. I mean, when we first came to Maryland, we were in Easton, Maryland. So we went over that huge bridge that I really don't need to do again, and I had to do it a few times, and but
I have a love-hate relationship with that bridge.
Yeah, that bridge. Some people jump off of it. Not a good thing. But,
it's up there 200 feet in the air. It's a little scary.
My thing, but I did it because we went and stayed at a cool inn, and that's where we had the Blackwater. But like Maryland, your state is pretty it's insanely beautiful. It is just gorgeous, and to me, like we were here in the fall, and now we're here in the summer. And just to see that diversity, like these wetlands, and then what you're talking about, with these gardens, I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful state. You must love being here. I
do. I'm not originally from Maryland, but I've lived here for over 20 years, and obviously I'm biased because I live here, but I do think the Mid-Atlantic region, you really get the best of both worlds. You get the four seasons. It's not crazy hot here, and we do have, in Western Maryland, you have some mountains, where you guys are at in Silver Spring. You've got, we're obviously talking about Kenilworth, but you've got a lot of exciting things to do in D.C., Annapolis, Baltimore. And then the Eastern Shore is just, it's another world over there. It's, with Blackwater and the open green space, it's a very laid back kind of place to be. It is a beautiful state. I will agree with you.
Yeah, it's interesting because coming from, we're both, born and raised in California for a bit, and what your idea of what the eastern part of the states is like is so not what it really is when you get there.
Yeah, we're shocked.
I know. this is not what I expected to see in this part of the country.
Yeah, but I think Kenilworth, your story kind of goes with kind of our experience of seeing these historic homes and this history, and it kind of goes with the East, like even Pennsylvania, like the gardens. We've been to some of the gardens that are just like holy cow, like. But it was people with this vision of plants, and I'm going, how do you do this? And then the snow comes, and that's what I'm like. That's kind of crazy. You're talking about these tropical water-lilies and lotus-blossoms, and then I know you get snow.
Well, some of the species at Kenilworth are hardy enough to winter over. They're okay in the water. But there are greenhouses on the property, and they actually they date back to when Helen and her father had the business. So some of the tropical water lilies that are more sensitive to the cold weather, they move them inside to winter. And then they bring them back out in like May, in the spring or the May time. So some of them do need protection, but there are versions that are hardy enough to survive the winter, because it is cold enough for the ponds to freeze in the winter, but they make it through.
I wonder if magnolias are related to water lilies in a way. They kind of have, I don't know.
That's an interesting thought. They have
that
know
what
sort
I mean?
Of shape.
Because you look at those leaves, and then even there's why can't I remember it? There's they're not. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember this. When you go in a swampy area, there's little white plants with the little thingies. It's not like it's not an anthurium, but it's like that, and it's white with white petals going around.
Lilies, calla lilies?
No. Oh, I can't stand that. I mean, this is like the most common plant. But it's there with all the water lilies, and it's kind of look like, I don't know. There's like a connection in a way to me. Those leaves, those petals, I should say. There's just that, and even the leaves. The magnolia tree. Like that's the other thing. The magnolias here are insane. That's just like wow.
But
the leaves are that big waxy leaf. Kind of like a lily pad leaf, and that thickness.
Well, the lily pads there are huge, especially I think I haven't really been there in the September or the fall, but there's I think it's called a Victoria Lotus lily, but the lily pads get very, very large, feet wide, and I think that's something also to see at Kenilworth as well as in a different part of the year.
Who would have thought we would have a national park over aquatic plants? I think it's pretty darn cool.
It is cool, and to my knowledge, it's the only one that exists.
Yeah. I mean, there's aquatic plants like in Everglades and things like that, but Everglades is like this insanely biodiverse system, with alligators and, pythons, which aren't like over there, but I think they're cool. But this is pretty
weird
amazing.
Because we used to see lilies in Africa, in Kenya, and you know that they come more from that side of the world than this side of the world. And then you get here and they're, I don't know. It's just funny.
It's cool. But now, I wanted to touch on community. You talked about this in your article, which I think is cool because that's why we actually do our tour, is to connect communities in their parks. And this is kind of like an urban park in a way, and it seems like people could go there, have lunch, even in their days, in breaks, work break or what have you, and family, but it seems like people are taking care of the park to help the Park Service.
They are. You're just that. You're right. I had a friend that was there with me who would do just that. She would come here on her lunch break, and when she worked in D.C. just to get out. So it is definitely
if you're in
a
D.C.,
resource.
You need to get out, get away from the politics, go to the flowers.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. They do have national park rangers that are there, and they have rangers that do and come and do maintenance. But there is a group called the Friends of Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens who do a lot of work to help promote and take care of the gardens.
Cool.
Every, I think, third week of the year in the summer, they have volunteers that come and help do some cleanup. The last time I was there, the volunteers were in hip waders in the water, and they were, with rakes trying to pull out some of the more invasive weeds and stuff. So there's definitely a huge a support of volunteers that help to maintain that park. In addition, the Friends of Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens, they host events like yoga in the park and music festivals, and they coordinate events there. So they're, I think, a big part of the community there. And speaking to the rangers there, they also encourage people to come and have events there or activities. They just they ask you to call the Park Service in advance to arrange that. But it's really a resource for anybody to come and utilize.
That's cool, man. I love that. And the volunteer, I think that's something we've talked about a lot on the shows recently. Is our way of travel is changing, and we're all looking to what can we do when we go to a place that we're actually giving back. We're not, and because you get such an authentic experience if you can volunteer, and you can get in there and get dirty a little bit. You're going to really know those lilies, And
you learn so much.
Yeah, and you're helping a park system, and you become it used to be like travel like a local. Nancy and I definitely do. We're giving back in these communities as pet sitters, right?
Right.
We're not doing it for money. This is just a thing is, hey, we're helping people travel, have peace of mind. We get to have better internet to do our radio shows and have wonderful guests like you on. And, the pets are happy. But so you're giving back and you get to know a community, the town. You get to know, like, how the garbage works and how things work. And it used to be travel like a local, and it was like, go to the local dive bar. I think we've really gone beyond that now. And volunteering and just really being ingrained in the community is really a cool thing. So I hope they take volunteers, like, if we wanted to go and volunteer when it seems that they have like a monthly, is it once a month?
They do a cleanup once a month, but if you go to their website, it's it's the Friends of Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. I do have the link in the article to their website. It's KenAQGardens.org. They do have a calendar of their events. I think you can look for other ways to volunteer. So, if you think you're going to go, that'd be a place to check out and see if there's a way you can help out while you're visiting.
That's awesome. You got the dog bark.
Yeah, you did.
They gave you the thumbs up to go and volunteer, everybody. That's what But this is so cool because you also say there's Anacostia Park next to it too.
Right.
So that's another part. I love it when parks are like next to each other because it increases the experience, but it's also better for the wildlife.
Right. So there's a little trail that leads from, it's just a quarter mile that leads from the Aquatic Gardens to the Anacostia River Trail, and that trail itself is about 3.5 miles long, and it runs along the Anacostia River, and that is also it's a fairly large community park that has playgrounds and ball fields and places where you can put in like a kayak or a paddleboard or something. So you can go on a bike ride. It's really common with bike riders. You'll see at the river trail head there are places where you can park your bike, and it's always full of bikes. So people get on the trail and come into the aquatic gardens and spend some time.
I love this. I love it. And that's exactly what we were talking about, these urban parks, and it's good for your health. These are parks that are good for your health, good for the community's health and happiness, and good for wildlife and flowers. It's flower power. Yep. I love it. So everyone, nps.gov/KEAQ is the website for the Park Service. And again, Julie's article is on nationalparktraveling.com. Just type in Kenilworth and you'll find it, or just type in Julie, you'll find it too. I wanted to touch base with you about being a writer because this is interesting about you going to like the gardens. Do you focus on nature or, because I was reading about you. Yeah, we Googled you. Everyone, follow Julie on her social media, but you've been to 45 countries, 5 continents.
Yes.
Is it nature or what is your main focus as a writer and a photographer?
Yeah, I am really drawn by nature and being outside. Like you both, I'm a huge lover of the national parks. My husband and I, we have a dream someday to, have a camper van or something and just go and, visit the national park. So I do tend to focus on nature, wildlife, and flowers. I've always had a long life love of flowers. So that's, generally what I focus on. But I do, write about other activities. Like I actually just came back from, you had mentioned Africa. I did a safari earlier in the summer, so I'm trying to, get some of the articles that I've, put some ideas from my safari and stuff. So,
Where'd you
I
go?
focus on.
Yeah, where did you go?
Yeah,
I went to Kenya and Tanzania.
Oh,
awesome.
That's our home. That's where we lived, Kenya.
Yeah.
We loved it. I really was impressed with Nairobi, and we went to the Masai Mara and to Amboseli National Park. And, it was fabulous.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing. That is amazing. So the wildlife, did you enjoy that? Because it's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I could watch the wildlife all day long. Whether that's, elephants in, Africa or elk in Yellowstone National Park, I could watch them all day.
Yeah.
Wow. This is interesting because your background is also as a pharmaceutical scientist. I can't even pronounce all that. So, and, so I'm going, okay, so she knows about drugs, and you were also the co-editor of Respiratory, a drug delivery. What? You're putting a drug in the lung. Yeah. So you've got this science background. Does that go? I mean, when you look at a plant, like if you look at a poppy, are you going, okay, I know what you can do? Like,
well, so I guess I'm more of a chemist than I am a botanist, but I do love plants, and so I've always been interested in, understanding them and taking care of them. So I still work as a scientist, and the writing and the travel writing and the photography is a passion and a hobby, and something I hope to do, full time someday. But I think it's a challenge as well. Sometimes as a scientist, I sometimes tend to write, a little bit more too technical than what I should. So, but I've always enjoyed writing and trying to tell a story, even if it was a scientific sort of angle, and I think it's allowed me to transition to travel writing.
I think there's something about writing, no matter what you're doing, that you have to add some creativity in it, because it's a spoonful of sugar, right?
Yeah.
That makes the medicine go down, seriously. So, seriously. But I mean, reading your article, I mean, to me, you're giving us exactly like, here, you want to go here. It's refreshing. It's great to just get the information you want. You sparked the interest, and then it's like, okay, now what to do, and add some history in there. And it's always, it's article writing is such a how many words, and then it's like, oh, some people want way more. But I think people's attention spans they want shorter bits, they're, give me the vibe, and then give me the goods to get there. I think you deliver very well.
If we talk about Helen, there were so much great things to talk about her, but I knew, that would take away from the focus of the article. So, you had to do your best to condense it, but you'd always want to tell more. So, but you're right. I think keeping things in a manner that people can easily digest and enjoy is the way to go. Yeah.
Well, you can always do a follow-up, and do more than one article rather than one great big book. Because sometimes we get articles turned in that look like books. We're like, uh-oh. Yeah.
Nope.
Uh-oh. No, but because, people are busy and they can only read so much at one time, and they can only ingest and think about.
Yeah,
So many
I think
points.
that's where, like, I started my travel writing with, going to it doesn't exist anymore, but Great Escape Publishing used to do a workshop on how to learn to write. I participate with the Travel Writers Cafe, where I've learned a lot of tips and best practices as a travel writer, and also that's what IFTWA does as well. Providing that sort of mentorship and education to help you not write a book.
Right. Well, no, the book is good. I think there's a certain personality that wants the book, So, those people that want to write a book hit with those people. But when you're looking, everybody's got their thing, and you have to find your thing, just like a musician finds their signature sound, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that in travel writing, but I think organizations help because it opens, Nancy and I obviously have a problem. We're big blend, and we can't, we're like, okay, Helen Shaw's story needs to go in our Way Back When magazine. It's like it's like, how can you not go to a park and not be interested in the woman that has really fought tooth and nail for plants and for the river and for what it's all about, and to have this respite from a city. How could you not get into that story? But then you're like, oh, but look at the flowers. So to me, it's like this story is about community and family. It's about history. It's about womanhood and entrepreneurship. It's about flower power and gardening. So that's to me it's a really good addiction in life to just be curious and get into all those stories. And then birding. Can I just put that in there too? Like you could go to that park and probably come out with 10 stories.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Then I have to get cracking then.
Get to it. Yeah. Because I think that's the thing. It's like when you open your eyes, and I wondered were you always a traveler? You've done 45 countries. There's a lot. I mean, is that something that you've done as a kid?
I love to travel. It's an addiction. So, I have to admit,
we can talk about addictions.
I mean, that's why one of the reasons for the draw for being a travel writer, because if you're, you've got to work for it, but if you get the opportunity to go on, press trips or, participate in events in cities, you kind of get sort of an inside knowledge, and you get to talk about it and write about it. So that was one of the, genesis for me wanting to be a travel writer, is to help facilitate my love of travel.
Well, awesome. Because you're given opportunities not everybody gets.
Right.
But you're having to work for it.
Where did it start for you, though? What was, like, what's your earliest memory of going somewhere and going, holy cow, I'm in?
From a writing standpoint, you mean?
Oh, no, traveler, writer,
traveling,
whichever.
Well, I mean, I've always had a love of travel. Like my goes back to my grandparents. They would travel the world, and they'd bring back these dolls of, dressed in the style of the region they were in, and there would be these slideshows. And so I just, I think that seed was planted when I was really young. I was fortunate to travel a lot of the U.S. with my parents in the summertime, and we went to a lot of the national parks, and so it was just really born from there. And along with that went, the photography. I've always, enjoyed taking pictures, taking a few classes here and there. But the travel writing aspect really got started for me in 2019. So I'm fairly recent at working to get my stories published and out there. But it's also a great avenue to have my photography also incorporated into the articles I write. Thank you.
Yeah. No. It's. I think you're very diligent in what you do, and Nancy and I were like, this is so cool, and we want to go. I mean, you got us wanting to go, and that's a cool thing. Great. And I think there's something. Well, you're a writer too in your science field, so, and understand that, and it's like I think that even medical people, every medical person I know has a quirky sense of humor. You have to. And scientists and biologists, there's just this other quirky side, because you can't be reading all that hardcore stuff and looking at without having some quirkiness and some humor or some kind of, I don't know, you've got to have storytelling. I don't care how, it's how much, you know what I mean? There's storytelling is storytelling. Even when it's like, here's your thesis on something really important, you need to have some storytelling in there to get people to open their mind. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, photography for you, do you think that helps open up observation? Like when you photograph, like a flower, it makes you stop? And if you're not photographing, you may not see it as much.
Yeah, I like to focus on the details and try to show things that maybe people don't see. So I think the pictures that I have for the article, there are some that have some, some detail in there to look, take a look closer, and just not, look out in the horizon, but look and see what's around you. So I think photography, it allows me to express that and share that.
Photography is great in that when you start embracing a camera and start taking photos, you start to look not just down or straight ahead. You start to look up, and sometimes you get to go on your hands and knees. Yeah,
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, see?
Nancy's always telling me to get down.
Get down. No, because, because there's different angles.
Yep.
That show, like you can take one subject and do it in 20 angles, and every photo will be different. The lighting will be different. The color will be different. The composition will be different, and the meaning will be different. And, so it's a study in not only yourself, but the subject, which I find, it is addictive, absolutely addictive.
So this is a show on addiction. Plants, birds, photography,
well, I think it's a healthy
nature,
addiction.
Animals, That's. I want to go see the osprey, I want to see an osprey perched above all these lilies, and, you see that in Louisiana a little bit, and that's wow, But, wow, very cool, Julie. I'm so glad you joined us on the show today.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Excited for everyone to see your article. Everyone, again, if you go to nationalparktraveling.com, you can learn more and read her story. Just type in Kenilworth, and that's Kenil, Kenilworth. And also, when it comes to the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association, again, it's every second Tuesday, every second Friday. We air shows here with them on Big Blend Radio. So go to ifwtwa.org. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. But I do want to say there's an awesome conference coming up. We're going to be doing a show on this the end of the month. IFTWA is hosting their annual conference in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I'm going to tell you, if you like birding, that's a really cool place to go. You got coastal, you got wetlands, you got all kinds of good stuff.
I'll be there.
Are you going?
Cool. Yes, I am.
Cool.
Awesome.
Oh, cool. I'm following you on that. I need to follow you on all social media here, because September 18th through 21, St. Petersburg, Florida is a conference. If you are a destination, if you are in the industry, if you're a winery, for example, you want to go. If you're a travel writer, blogger, photographer, you got to go. So check it out, ifwtwa.org. And it's St. Petersburg. Have you been there before?
I have. I don't think I've really spent a lot of time there. We tend to go south down towards Sarasota, but I'm looking forward to the conference as an opportunity to really get to explore the city.
Yeah, because they have all these trips connected with it too.
Yep.
And panelists, and then all the workshops and the networking and the marketplace. It's
awesome.
Cool. That's going to be so cool. So I can't wait, because we've covered a couple of the conferences, just not us being there. We'll be on a farm in North Carolina during this. So, but we'll hear back from everyone, because I think Whidbey Island, when everyone went to Santa Fe, and it's transforming for writers. And also the destinations and everyone that goes. There's nothing like networking, and now to be able to do it in person is awesome.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. The networking is priceless.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And learning, because this industry is changing. I don't even know if you can go to school for it, and by the time you get out of school, it's going to be changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's changing so fast.
For the building blocks and the basics, but you got to keep up and keep educating yourself in your chosen field. I don't care whatever field it is. Get the building blocks in school, and then once you're out, you have to keep up.
Yeah, that's like science, right, Julie? That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, science is always evolving. One day you can drink coffee, and the next day you can't. But then don't worry, because 2 days later you'll be able to drink coffee.
You'll be able.
And
if you just do moderate, then you're probably safe. If you're drinking 20 cups of coffee, no matter what, it's probably not going to be good.
It's not good for anybody. It's not good
for
anybody.
Coffee company.
No. But Julie, give everybody again your social media. I've got it as C by Julie-Dee. So is that right?
That's
SEE. by and Julie, Juliedee. I have to sit there and tell everybody, like, just showcase that I can spell because I have the words in front of me.
Yeah, so that's my on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find me at C by Julie D.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And if you guys go to Kenilworth, I want to hear all about it.
Oh, we'll be tagging you on social media and telling you and emailing you and saying, we're here. But, hopefully, and if not, we will get there. I mean, because we're here doing parks, like that's our thing, is nonstop parks. We're going to close with a song called Lotus-Blossom. I think this is wild that we're in Maryland talking to you about
Lotus-Blossom.
And now we have a song called Lotus-Blossom. Like, is that wild or what? Like, it was
meant to be.
Yeah, when's the full moon happening? Right. Here it is, everyone. Lotus-Blossom from our friends Michael and Spider. Keep up with them at michaelandspider.com. You can get the music on Bandcamp, Amazon, all those great places. But here it is, Lotus-Blossom. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, guys.
Julie.